This is More Than Therapy podcast. More than therapy. This is More Than Therapy. More Than Therapy podcast. This is More Than Therapy. More Than Therapy podcast. This is More Than Therapy podcast. All right. Welcome to another episode of the More Than Therapy podcast. This is More Than Therapy podcast. All right. Dean Graves is not your typical spiritual teacher. He's a conscious disruptor who has spent over 25 years helping people break up with stress, dismantle suffering, and remember who they really are beneath the roles and trauma. His work sits at the edge of spirituality, psychology, and cosmic intelligence, inviting people to question everything they think they know about happiness, purpose, and the human experience. He hosts two powerful shows, Chatting with Arcturians and Simple Enlightenment, where he unpacks messages from higher density consciousness and translates them into practical tools for healing and everyday transformation. These conversations don't just comfort listeners. They challenge them to awaken, to stop outsourcing their power, and to step into a radically different way of living. Dean has also written 4 books on consciousness and self-healing, including Enlightenment, Plain and Simple, and The Enigma of Consciousness, offering a blueprint for anyone ready to move beyond chronic stress, emotional pain, and spiritual confusion. His work is rooted in over 15 years of study with a 6-density creator being, giving him a perspective on the human journey that is as bold as it's unsettling in the best way possible. On this episode of More Than Therapy, Dean is here to talk about why you're stressed, what your suffering is really trying to show you, and how awakening to your true identity can rewrite the entire story of your life. If you ever ask, what is my purpose and how do I actually heal? This conversation might be the pivot point you've been waiting for. And on this episode of More Than Therapy, I introduce you to Dean Graves. Dean, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Indeed. So, Dean, tell me, if stress isn't the problem, but a symptom, what is humanity really sick with?
Stress is actually our teacher, and it can be summarized as saying or defining it as the difference between our expectations, how we think things should be, and how things really are. Anytime that we have an experience that we interpret as being unwanted or disliked, that means that it is a message to us of something that we need to become aware of, that is part of our perception of self, our identity, and resolved, healed, usually by letting it go. And invariably, it is precipitated by a belief that we have incorporated into our identity. Identity that you can call an ego or you can call a hierophant, all the same thing. But we are designed, we function according to a design. We are designed with every incarnation to create this identity. The identity is synonymous with our perception of self. The task as humans and as consciousness is to enjoy the experiences that are attracted to us, because we are magnetic, and because we are magnetic, we attract the experiences that we need in order to facilitate our healing. Healing is synonymous with advancing along the enlightenment path, which again is synonymous with the evolution of consciousness in general. And so when we fail to become aware of and pay attention to the stress that we're experiencing on a daily basis, then we are in the process of perpetuating our experience of stress and eventually suffering.
Mm. Thank you, Dean. In a world obsessed with productivity, work, 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 like Rihanna says, how can we return to presence?
Well, by healing. While we are in the process of developing and promoting this identity, then we are using our inherent awareness to be pointed outside of us, because we are all motivated to get more of what we like. There's what we like may vary from person to person, but that notwithstanding, we're motivated to get more of what we like. While we maintain this identity as our authentic perception of self, our awareness is pointed outside of us, because I have to watch your reactions, you being the world around us. I have to watch your reactions to the identity that I have created in order to modify this identity incrementally with every interaction that we have, to try to make it more successful in getting us more of what we like. The healing begins when we have the awareness that this process that we have been developing, usually over the course of most of our lifetime, it was for me, is not, it may be achieving relative success from a conventional standpoint, but it's not actually bringing us greater happiness. When we have that awareness, then what we are doing is we are inverting that awareness to become aware that we're not actually getting happier by all the things that we are doing. And we begin to become aware of what it is inside of us. We invert that same awareness inside of us and begin to explore ourselves. That exploration of ourselves is everyone's purpose. There's no one that has a different purpose in life, or for the reason that we're participating in creation. We do have individual missions. Our mission differs from our purpose in life, because our mission is essentially to do what we like in order to have the types of experiences that will permit us to fulfill our purpose in life. And so by fulfilling our mission, doing what we like, we become proficient at what we're doing, and we begin to attract the more succinct and more clearly defined experiences that will allow us to fulfill our purpose in life.
Indeed, indeed. Where's my thing? You say that most of what we call free will is actually intoxication. What does that mean for how we live our lives?
Well, we misperceive free will to be the choice of whether we can turn right or turn left, or whatever the alternative choices are. Those are all byproducts of free will. Free will is actually the perception of separation. It is a distortion, and it was the first distortion of creation that allowed creation to develop. Because we perceive ourselves as separate from every other aspect, including other people, from that are participating in creation, we have that choice to go right or to go left, and allows us to uniquely explore consciousness, which we are, and thereby fulfill the purpose of creation. Creation is vast beyond our wildest imagination, but it has been developed in stratifications of consciousness, each stratification made possible by an increasing degree of free will intoxication. And free will works increasing the intensity of free will, works exactly like whiskey. The more whiskey that we drink, the less aware that we are, and the more stupidly we behave in comparison to how we would behave without the intoxication. We are very low on the consciousness scale, which simply means that we are, relatively speaking, immature in our evolution, and we are heavily intoxicated with free will. The entire process of consciousness evolution, the entire process of advancement along the enlightenment path, is sobering from this free will intoxication. As we do that, and while we are extremely intoxicated, then that perpetuates the intensity of our experience of stress and eventually suffering. The more we liberate ourselves from that intoxication and sober from the free will intoxication, the more of our authentic self emerges. The authentic self is always there. It is never not there. It's simply not recognized by us because of our preoccupation with this free will intoxication. But the more that we sober from that, the more of our authentic self emerges, and the happier we get because our authentic self is already everything that we seek.
Can enlightenment exist in a world dominated by social media and constant distraction? I ask you this because I was starting to get attributes associated with ADHD, and I noticed that my screen time was like 5 and 6 hours. When I reduced screen time to 1 to 2 hours, I no longer had those attributes. So when I ask you again, can enlightenment exist in a world dominated by social media and constant distractions?
Sure, but understand, if you're preoccupied with the social media and distractions, then your awareness is still pointed outside of you. It is only when we assume responsibility for our evolution, for our advancement along the enlightenment path, by learning to invert the awareness that we all have. There's no one that does not have that tool of awareness, and begin to invert that awareness to become aware of what are the aspects of us that need to be healed. And that is all of our responsibilities. And until we take that step and assume responsibility for our own healing, assume our responsibility for advancing along the enlightenment path, it's not going to be defined as progress, because will be perpetuating our stress and suffering.
So with suffering,
You said, if I may, in your question, you implied, without specifically stating, that you assumed responsibility for shortening the cycle and the duration of the difficulties that you were experiencing. So by simply assuming that responsibility and undertaking the task as your responsibility, rather than relying on medication or someone else to do that for you, right, you're proving the point.
Thank you for that. Is suffering truly optional once a person begins to awaken, or is some suffering built into the human experience?
Suffering is nothing more than the perpetuation of our experience of stress. As I said earlier, stress is anything that we don't like, and we are magnetic. We attract our experiences, and we interpret those experiences according to how we are, not according to how the experience is. There's no experience that comes to us with any emotion on it whatsoever. And because it is absolutely neutral of any emotions, that is only our application of how we are and interpretation of the experience according to how we are, that we experience stress. Suffering is nothing more than unlearned experience, stressful experience, that we continue to attract and continue to perpetuate. If you think of stress versus suffering as stress, you hit yourself in the head with a 2x4 one time. If you learn your lessons, and you don't have to relearn that lesson. But if you continue to bop yourself in the head with the same 2 before, that's suffering.
Indeed. I know I had to get to a point where I had to forgive myself. I felt in order to move on. And with forgiving myself, I was able to be more authentic to what I felt was my true self. I was able to write again after a long lapse of not being able to write. I was able to create again, being a creative again, as that was something that I also lost when I was holding on to this pain. What role does forgiveness play in raising our level of consciousness?
A tremendous role. When we forgive ourselves, and what we're doing is actually becoming aware of the value that those perceived negatives have had on our awakening. When we forgive ourselves, we're actually letting go of the court to completely forgive ourselves. What we're doing is we're giving up that belief that we incorporated as part of our identity, that we violated by whatever behavior that we did or did not do. It works both ways. If you have a belief that you should do something and you actually don't do it, then that is as perceived as wrongful on your part as if you actually did something that directly violated one of those beliefs. The belief is part of this identity, and identity is nothing more than a bundle of beliefs. That's all that it is. And as we escalate our inwardly directed awareness, we are allowing ourselves healing by becoming aware of the beliefs that we've incorporated into this identity and surrendering it. So it's no longer a magnet, no longer a hindrance to our experience of life. We have a part of the design that we have is that we will experience a lot of what we don't like. And if you understand that in order to know what you do like, you have to experience a lot of what you don't like. And I use the analogy in my explanations to my students. If you've decided that chocolate ice cream is your favorite flavor of ice cream, you have to ask yourself, how did you come to that conclusion? Well, with 150 different flavors of ice cream in the ice cream store, you had to taste a large number of those different ice cream flavors in order to discern that chocolate is your favorite. We learn by comparison and contrast. We learn by analogy. And if you don't have the negative experiences of what you don't like, you don't know what you do like when you finally encounter it. And so that is the design that we all have, that we all begin and continue to function at this range of consciousness and throughout all of the rest of creation, is experiencing more of what they do like because they've experienced what they don't like and can throw those out. That's no longer part of my belief system or my the nature of my functioning.
If consciousness is infinite, why is the human experience often filled with limitation and fear?
Well, because we function within a range of consciousness, and that range of consciousness is very low on the scale. We explore and experience everything that we have the capabilities of. If you understand that or make the comparison that we are in a video game, and we can do anything within that video game that the video game has been programmed to experience. And there are an infinite number of other video games that are running simultaneous to us, but we cannot, by virtue of the design, intrude upon their game, and they can't intrude upon our game. And so consequently, we are exploring a segment of the potential of consciousness as they are exploring potentials within their video game as well. As we evolve, as we surrender these myopic perceptions of self and evolve towards greater unity, then these parameters are lessened and eventually will go away, and we will reach the point where we begin to create the video games.
I like that one. Oh yeah. And I'm sure my sons would really like that one.
He's already on the road,
no, no doubt. You study with a 6-density creator being. What has that entity told you about why humans are here?
Well, because we're here to explore ourselves, because that's fulfilling the purpose of creation. We are in the third density. We're all sharing this range of consciousness. The third range of consciousness, the third density, is the first range of consciousness that has an adequate degree of awareness that we can assume responsibility for our own evolution. A sixth density entity is beyond the experiential ranges, and they are the first range of the creator being densities. They actually create the nature of our experiences, all of our worlds, all of our concepts, all of the thoughts that we process are created by the sixth density range of consciousness. Above the sixth range of consciousness, they have turned beyond working with the lower densities and are actually in the process of reintegrating and re-evolving with the one infinite creator.
If someone listening or watching feels completely lost, how do they know whether they're actually on the edge of an awakening?
How do they feel? It's our interpretation. We erroneously perceive that our interpretations are academic or intellectual. Out of a lifetime, what is preserved from a lifetime has nothing to do with the parchments that you have framed on your walls or anything to do with physicality. What is preserved in our metaphysical self, which is our enduring self, is what we have learned about the 5 inherent characteristics of the creator, which are very simply awareness, love, wisdom, unity, and stillness. As our evolution progresses with our metaphysical self, then that will be a hierarchical presentation and evolution as we are capable, because by doing it incrementally in a hierarchical basis, it allows us to explore those aspects of the creator as deeply and completely as possible.
I see. Can humanity evolve spiritually without first healing its trauma, or does unhealed trauma cap our level of awareness?
It caps our level of awareness only because it leaves gaps in our flow of experiences. We perceive a trauma is distinguished from simply a stressful, what we deem to be a stressful experience, because, well, take for example, we perceive an experience to last some period of time, 30 minutes, an hour, some period of time. In that perceived experience are dozens of thoughts. Each individual thought in and of itself is a complete experience. And the reason that it is a complete experience is, as humans, as consciousness, we are obligated to adjudicate that particular thought as either being something that feels good and that I like, or it doesn't feel good and it's something that I don't like. Certainly, both of those determinations are a spectrum. So there are things that we don't like on a very minor basis. Those things that we don't like on a major basis are the ones that we deem to be traumatic, because the experience, that thought, so challenges the authenticity of our identity, which again is our perception of self, that we are unable to adjudicate that thought at the time that we are encountering that thought. And so for that moment, that one thought, we actually enter into a condition of shock. And because that is a condition of shock, and we don't make that adjudication about that one moment, that one thought, it leaves a gap in our flow of experience. In a perceived experience of, say, 30 minutes, for example, I have never encountered anyone that has had more than 5 moments, and that by far is the most extreme. Usually it's 1 or 2 moments within a perceived experience that has been traumatic for that individual's experience. In order to heal that is a relatively simple process of doing an exercise that focuses their awareness on that one thought, on that one moment, allowing them to make that adjudication of whether that moment felt good or didn't feel good. And in so doing, the traumatic nature, the hindrance to that person's identity, becomes healed. The whole perceived experience becomes cleared of that traumatic, and they feel just a tremendous lifting of a weight off of them. And most of my patients that I work with are by referrals of therapists, and almost invariably the therapist, before they refer the patient to me, explains that the patient is unable or unwilling to talk about their traumatic experience. And once we do the processes that I use and clear the traumatic nature of the moments within the perceived experiences, the therapists tell me they can't shut them up. All they want to do is talk about this experience and figure out the pieces of the puzzle, why it happened, and so on and so forth. Post-traumatic stress is contingent upon that seed, that traumatic moment within a perceived experience. And the PTSD is post-traumatic, so it's after the trauma, but it is the coping mechanisms that the individual has developed in order to deal with that vacancy within their flow of perceived experiences. So oftentimes the individual is able to resolve most of the behaviors that they've created in order to deal with that traumatic moment, or with relatively minor guidance from a good therapist to resolve those behaviors that, again, they developed as a result of the healing of the traumatic experience.
Okay. Do UFOs and UAPs have anything to do with human spiritual evolution, or are we just practicing our fears, projecting our fears and hopes into the sky?
The universe is a very busy place, and understand that our low level of consciousness requires us to perceive spatial distance and time. Time is nothing more than our inability to process more than one thought at a time. And so we perceive time to be linear. Time is not linear. Time is actually latitudinally occurring simultaneously, and it's called simultaneity. We do not have the capacity at our low level of consciousness development to experience simultaneity. We will in the future have that capability. UFOs and UAPs, for the most part, for us, have been intrusions by negatively oriented entities that are of a higher consciousness than we are, but not significantly higher. For the most part, they participate in the next range above us. One of the things that we are obligated to do at this range of consciousness in order to prepare for graduation to the next range of consciousness is make a choice that, and it is called the choice. The choice is to choose whether we are going to polarize service to self or service to others. Those of us who choose to polarize service to self choose to separate themselves from the creator to further enhance this false identity that we create. And also that choice as we progress along multiple lifetimes, each lifetime incrementally choosing a greater degree of polarization, are the foundations for what we in the mental health industry call narcissism, psychopathy, and those distortions that perpetuate the individual as opposed to surrendering that identity and being more what we would perceive to be productive in the human experience. Those choosing the service to others path are choosing to surrender this identity to continue to evolve in greater unity with the overwhelming majority of creation consciousness as well as the creator itself. The service to self path is considered to be the indirect path to the creator because you advance so far and then you hit a brick wall and you literally can't go any further because you can't be in unity and in separation at the same time. So the consciousness that has chosen that path will eventually evolve by going back to the starting point, the starting line, and going all the way through all that they've already experienced, but with from a zero starting point because they have to learn the curriculum of reuniting with the creator along the service to others path, which is considered the direct path because it is a constant path of ever greater unity.
All right, we're going to do rapid fire now if you're ready for it.
Okay.
You ready? These are 10 quick hit questions from the Modern Therapy audience. One word for the root of all human stress. Go.
Strength.
Happiness, emotion, or state of being?
It's a state of being. It's a condition of being.
Best first step to awaken right now?
Turn that awareness inwardly. Meditation is my recommendation of how to do that.
Indeed. Free will, real or illusion?
Very real.
Trauma's greatest gift?
Pain.
Enlightenment in one sentence?
Our release of our creatorness.
UFOs and human evolution. Connected?
Intimately.
Biggest lie society tells about purpose?
Total lack of understanding.
Healing complete when this occurs?
Long time in the future, but it's unity with the creator.
One message from your sixth density teacher?
Be the change. I'll quote Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much, Dean Graves, for sharing your profound insights and fearless wisdom with us today. Your teachings challenge us to look beyond the surface, embrace our healing journeys, and awaken to the deeper truths that shape our lives and consciousness. For anyone seeking real transformation, your work offers not just answers, but a powerful blueprint to live more authentically and fully. Listeners, be sure to check out Dean's podcast, Chatting with Arcturians and Simple Enlightenment, and dive into his books if you're ready to deepen your understanding of consciousness, healing, and awakening. You can find all his works and more at capital D or letter D, deangraves.org. That's DEANGRAVES.org. And of course, this will be in the show notes. If today's conversation moved you, share this episode, spread the message, and remember, healing starts within, but it ripples out to change the world. Stay inspired, stay awake, and most of all, keep taking those courageous steps on your own transformative path. Until next time on Modern Therapy. But before we go, Dean, would you like to leave the audience with any continuing words?
Look in the mirror and see the creator.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And that's the end of this episode of Modern Therapy Podcast, where you can listen to or watch wherever you find your favorite podcast. And hopefully it's this one. Until the next time, be well and continue to be great.